What's up, everyone? Welcome to the NBA Daily Podcast, your home for useless facts about the NBA. My name's Dawson Shine, and I'm your host. So, today we're going to be starting it off with the games from 2 nights ago, because unfortunately yesterday, because of some real life stuff, I wasn't able to do the show. So today, we're going to make up for it by having a nice, good show about all 5 games that have happened in the past 2 nights. So first off, we're going to kick it off with the Raptors defeating the Pacers 102-99 in the least Raptors way possible. So, to start off the game, the Pacers came out on fire in the first quarter. They were leading 35-20 at the end of the first quarter because Paul George went off. He had 12 points in the first quarter, and George Hill, his sidekick, hit 3 threes, Solomon Hill adding 2 of his own. So it was a huge first quarter, and it was looking bad for the Raptors on their home court in a crucial Game 5. But DeMar DeRozan finally defrosted. He had 34 points in the game, 10 for 22 shooting, which is really good compared to his other games this series. And he also had 13 points in the second quarter to help cut the lead down to 9 points at halftime. But PG-13 continued his hot stretch, had 15 points in the third quarter, pushing the lead all the way to 13 points going into the fourth and final quarter. Now, this was huge. The Raptors shifted this entire game. So, they held the Pacers to 2 points for the first 9.5 minutes in the fourth quarter. Nope, you didn't mishear me, folks. 2 points in 9.5 minutes. One of the main reasons was due to Frank Vogel, the coach of the Indiana Pacers, inexplicably sitting Paul George in favor of Rodney Stuckey, who was just absolute trash in his minutes on the floor compared to Paul George. The Pacers organization better put Stuckey in a witness protection program back in Indy because the fans were pissed off. The Raptors used their great rebounding and hustle by Bismack Biyombo, who pitched in 16 rebounds last night, and just overall team effort, especially by Norman Powell, and massive dunks by him, DeMar DeRozan playing great. They used that to claw back and outscore the Pacers 25-9 in the fourth quarter of a Game 5 playoff series. That's ridiculous. But the ending was much closer than it may sound. It was only 0.1 seconds off of going to overtime. Now, Solomon Hill hit a 3 with a few seconds left to cut the lead to 100-99. DeMar DeRozan then hit 2 clutch free throws to make it 102-99 with 2.7 seconds left. These 2.7 seconds must have felt like the longest seconds of my life watching a basketball game. The Pacers inbounded it to Paul George, who then immediately got double-teamed at the three-point line. And instead of trying to take a fadeaway 3 stepping back and trying to just heave up a prayer, he actually split through the double team and passed it to Solomon Hill in the corner to take the game-tying 3. Hill drilled the 3. Absolutely drilled it. But on review, he was 0.1 seconds too late. The ball was still in his hand, so it didn't count. It looked a lot like Paul Pierce's 3 against the Hawks last year when he played for the Wizards in the playoffs. Raptors' comeback was complete. And huge for the Raptors, who now have a 3-2 series lead, who are now going back to Indiana with a chance to clinch the series and make it to the second round for the first time since 2001. That's a very long playoff drought. But they do have to face against Paul George, who was absolutely incredible again. He had 39 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, and a block, and was only a millisecond too late from the game-tying assist. So he's really been incredible in this series, and his back must kill from carrying this team. Without Paul George, the Pacers don't even stand a chance in the series, but he has helped carry this team through 2 wins already, and maybe a third one at home, and a chance for a Game 7 and an upset. He's been incredible, and that's probably one of the reasons why today's controversial question of the day is who's the second best player in the Eastern Conference? Because in my opinion, it's Paul George, and that's by far the second best player in the Eastern Conference because he's so good on both sides of the ball. His shot is butter. His defense is amazing. He can guard up anyone. Look what he did to DeMar DeRozan for the first 4 games of this series. He locked him up. And then last night, 39-8-8 in a playoff game that was huge on the road. That's incredible, and he's so clutch in the playoffs. He hits big jumpers. He passes it when he needs to, like when he passed it to Solomon Hill. I mean, he made so many great plays last night, and he does that every night. So for me, he's definitely the second best player in the Eastern Conference. But if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. Tell me who your second best player in the Eastern Conference is. Now, moving on to other games in the Eastern Conference, we have the Boston Celtics versus the Atlanta Hawks in a huge Game 5 in Atlanta. And the Atlanta Hawks obliterated the Celtics 110-83 for a 3-2 series lead. And it wasn't even that close, to be honest. The Celtics had their scrubs in with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. but we're going to run through the whole game and break this down for you. So, after 2 amazing games in Boston, the Celtics fell flat on their face. Started off great on the defensive end in the first quarter. They held Atlanta to 15 points while scoring 20 of their own. Then they also pushed the lead to 29-19 in the second quarter on the backs of Marcus Smart and Amir Johnson. But everything fell apart for the Celtics as the Hawks got on a roll. Isaiah and Smart continued to lose their man on defense. Jeff Teague went off, Korver went off, but especially Kent Bazemore. He took advantage in the second quarter, had 12 points on 4 threes. I swear, every time I looked at him, he was wide open in the corner. It was ridiculous. The Celtics defense could not find him and keep their eyes on him. Very poor defense from Jay Crowder and Marcus Smart. And then in the third quarter, it looked like Evan Turner was going to lead the Celtics in a comeback like they've done so many times this season. They cut the lead to 5 points on 7 straight points by Evan Turner. But the Hawks took advantage of poor lineup choices by Coach Brad Stevens, like putting Sullinger in against the mobile Millsap, or also Kelly Olynyk, who's just not healthy. He cannot play right now. And so the Hawks took advantage, and they went off in the third quarter. Korver had 10 in the quarter, but the whole team contributed. And over the last 8 minutes of the third quarter, the Hawks went on a 36-14 run, including a stretch where they hit 11 consecutive shots. It was ridiculous. They just couldn't miss, and the Celtics could not buy a bucket. Hawks went up into the fourth quarter, up 89-62, with the game basically over. But coach of the Celtics, Brad Stevens, thought it wasn't over yet, considering he's watched this team come back a few too many times. So he decided to leave the starters in, down 27 in a road playoff game in the fourth quarter. And it almost cost him Isaiah Thomas for the next game, because on a drive to the hoop early in the fourth quarter with about 9.5 minutes to go, right before Isaiah's replacement came in, Isaiah drove, cut the double team, did a Euro step, hurt his ankle, and ran right to the locker room. Luckily enough for Celtics fans, Isaiah Thomas was not seriously hurt and will be playing in Game 6 tonight. But it was a very risky move on the part of Brad Stevens, because if Isaiah Thomas got injured on that play, he would have been questioned for the rest of the series, which would have been 1 game, because they would have lost without Isaiah Thomas. Honestly, this may have been one of the worst coached games of Brad Stevens' young career, because he made roster errors, lineup changes that didn't work, especially with Sullinger and Olynyk. He had problems organizing the defense, which may be in part due to the players, but also due to the coach for not getting them to focus properly. And finally, for leaving the starters in after getting blown out, and not calling timeouts while they were getting blown out. Because during that 11 consecutive shot run by the Atlanta Hawks in the third quarter, Brad Stevens did not call a timeout once. The lead went from 5 to 21 in less than 2.5 minutes, and he didn't call a timeout because he wanted to let his players play. I'm sorry, but this is not a Phil Jackson coach team where you can just let them play off and Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal will be able to take control and run the offense properly, slow the game down and stop the run. This is Isaiah Thomas and a bunch of very unknown players trying to play above their abilities. You can't be relying on them to play properly and stop another team's run, because they play a lot of emotions. And if they start to get down, it gets worse and worse and worse. But if they start to get up, they'll do better. And unfortunately, Brad Stevens did not call timeout. It got out of hand, and the Celtics were cooked. But there's still Game 6 tonight, and it's going to be a very entertaining game. And I'm looking forward to watching them play, because it's going to be the only game on tonight, so everyone's attention will be turned to Game 6 in Boston. See if the Celtics can bring this to a Game 7. And that Game 7 might be pretty likely, considering no team in this series has won an away game yet. Another series where there hadn't been an away win yet was the Miami Heat versus the Charlotte Hornets, which ended last night when the Charlotte Hornets won 90-88 to take a 3-2 series lead against the Miami Heat, overcoming a 7-point deficit in the fourth quarter. And also, it was another huge game from Courtney Lee, especially clutch-wise, because at the end of the game, he was 1 for 8 from the field. He hit 1 3 all night. He only had 5 points. He had no rebounds, and he went out there on the last couple plays of the game. With 26 seconds left, he got the offensive rebound, kicked it out to Kemba Walker, ran out to the three-point line, and then drilled the 3 to give them the lead. But overall, this game was very entertaining because it went back and forth. Charlotte came out strong in the first quarter and continued that in the second quarter, having a 2-point lead at halftime. But then Miami made their run in the third quarter. They went all out, had a 6-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and looking like they were going to try and win at home to take a 3-2 lead going back to Charlotte. But Charlotte did not allow that to happen. Despite another poor shooting night from Kemba Walker, 4 for 18 from the field, only 14 points, they had great play from everyone else contributing on the roster. Marvin Williams was the team high scorer with 17 points and 8 rebounds. Overall, great game. And also, Jeremy Lin, despite not shooting great, 4 for 10, and not shooting well from the free throw line at all, he contributed in so many major ways to running this offense. He had 7 assists last night, and they were big because the offense, when he was on the court, just felt like it was calmer and more evenly paced. So whenever the Heat went onto a run, it didn't matter because Jeremy Lin would bring the ball up slowly and use his presence to make sure the offense was run properly. He actually played more minutes than Kemba Walker did. That's pretty awesome because he's been playing very well for a bench player making $2 million a year. That's so low for what he deserves as such a good player. And it's always fun to see Jeremy Lin doing better since, Lin's sanity a couple of years ago when he was on the Knicks. Obviously, he didn't have a great season with the Houston Rockets, and then he had an awful season with the Lakers. But he's having a resurgence right now in the playoffs, and it's really helping his team win. On the other side of the ball, the Miami Heat. They had a great game by Dwayne Wade, and just Dwayne Wade basically. 11 for 19 with 25 points. Luol Deng had an okay scoring game. He had 16 points, but he had 4 for 12 shooting. Goran Dragic had an awful game from shooting. He had 5 for 15 from the field. Josh Richardson shot 3 for 8. Justice Winslow shot 1 for 6. I think you're catching these drifts right now. They had poor shooting again from all around the team, and it cost them because they just didn't have a good offensive system set up in the fourth quarter. Passes weren't on point. Players were not playing properly. The team high assists was Dwayne Wade with 4. Goran Dragic, the starting point guard, had 5 for 15 shooting, but he also only had 3 assists and 2 turnovers. Dwayne Wade himself had 5 turnovers, and it's just not possible to make a comeback or to just hold on and win a playoff game if you're turning the ball over more often than you're actually getting assists. So it cost them a lot in the fourth quarter. But it does set up a really great Game 6 in Charlotte for Charlotte to win their first playoff series in a decade and a half. It's going to be really entertaining. Another series that's not as entertaining anymore is the Portland Trailblazers versus the Los Angeles Clippers. Well, I don't know if anyone's heard, but Blake Griffin has been ruled out for the rest of the postseason, and Chris Paul has been ruled out for 4 to 6 weeks, so effectively the rest of the postseason. That left Austin Rivers, Paul Pierce, and Jamal Crawford in the starting lineup. Yeah, it was definitely a very rough night for the Clippers. Without their starting point guard and their all-star power forward, they were lacking in offense from all facets of the game, and Portland just took advantage of it. They were up by 5 points at halftime, the Clippers were, and it was looking like they were actually going to make a comeback and try and win this game despite missing so many players. But then Portland's talent just took over, especially Mason Plumlee having another huge game, and also CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard dominating again. CJ McCollum was 9 for 18 from the field for 27 points, and Damian Lillard pitched in with 22 points of his own. Honestly, they were just too much to handle, especially in the fourth quarter, when they went in tied and came out with a 10-point win. And it was honestly just because the Clippers didn't have the firepower. They were relying on Jamal Crawford, who's 36, Paul Pierce, starting lineup, J.J. Redick, who can't really create his own offense without Paul on the floor, Chris Paul, of course, and Austin Rivers, who's an okay backup point guard, not a starting point guard for the playoffs. So, poor shooting all around from that team, especially 6 for 23 from the field for Jamal Crawford, 7 for 17 for J.J. Redick, who's normally very efficient, and then 6 for 13 from Austin Rivers. They just didn't have the firepower to win. They tried. They gave it a very good effort, which is valiant, but it looks like Portland will actually be winning this series, despite being huge underdogs. And the final series, with huge underdogs in it, is the Golden State Warriors versus the Houston Rockets. So this Game 5 is pretty interesting because players like Jason Terry for the Rockets guaranteed a victory. They guaranteed it because Steph Curry, of course, the MVP of the league, was not on the Golden State Warriors last night. His MCL sprain on his right knee left him out for 2 weeks, and he did not play, obviously. But the Warriors came out there and won 114 to 87. They were up by 17 by the end of the first quarter. And you want to know what's really crazy and what really shows how bad Harden has carried this team's offense? In the first quarter, Houston scored 20 points. Harden scored 18 of those and every field goal in the quarter. That's right. He scored every single field goal and 18 of the 20 points in the quarter. He carries that offense. So it always makes me pretty mad when people complain about his defense, considering how much of a load offensively he has to carry for this team. But he can't do it on his own. It's just not possible. They're going to have to rebuild this team from scratch because Harden put up a great game. He had 35 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, and he went out there and he tried very hard to give this team another win. But besides him, everyone else shot awful. The second best player on the court last night was Michael Beasley. You know, the guy who got high and got sent to China because he couldn't keep his head on straight. He had 11 points and 7 rebounds on 5 of 13 shooting. Yeah, 38.5% was the best percentage on a large number of shots for the Rockets. And also, Jason Terry, who guaranteed a victory, was 0 for 7 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3. Just an overall great game by Jason Terry. This entire team is pathetic, and I can't wait to watch them get blown up in the offseason and find a whole new cast of characters to put around James Harden, because he's amazing, the best shooting guard in the league. But unfortunately, him versus the entire Golden State Warriors is not possible, especially because players like Sean Livingston on the Golden State Warriors are incredible. And also Klay Thompson, 7 for 11 from 3, 27 points. People used to say he couldn't be a first option, but man, he's proven them wrong these back-to-back games without Steph Curry really playing. Klay Thompson is now at 7 threes in back-to-back playoff games, which is the first time in NBA history. And finally, Draymond Green had a great night. He had 15 points, 8 assists, and 9 rebounds. And his team just showed why it won 73 games. If you remove Steph Curry from the Golden State Warriors, they don't lose 30 wins. They're still a great team, and their roster is built from top to bottom with talent. And the Rockets roster is built from top to bottom with trash besides Harden. So, obviously, it was a blowout. A 33-point blowout, to be exact. But now we get to see who the Golden State Warriors will face in the next round of the playoffs, which is the real interesting one. Because, obviously, the Clippers are fighting without their 2 best players against a Portland team that's hungry for another playoff victory. So, whoever wins that series will be facing off against the Golden State Warriors in the next round. And we'll have all of the Western Conference set up for the second round of the playoffs. So I'm excited, and also looking forward to tonight's Boston Celtics-Hawks game. But that's all I have for today's information. I'm glad I caught you guys up for the past 2 days of the NBA playoffs, and I hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment saying who your second best player in the Eastern Conference is, and have a great day. Thanks.